everyone. Welcome to the Smile Project, a podcast from School of Dentistry, IMU.
Thank you for joining us today. This podcast is all about holistic dental education on the go. This would enhance your knowledge and attitude not only towards dentistry, but life as a whole.
Tune in to hear and learn from specialists from various fields of dentistry, sharing their experience and discussing topics in the realm of dentistry. Also, we have in store a small dose of inspire and influence, a section for quotes and productivity tips. So, let's begin.
Hi everyone, welcome to another episode of the Small Project. I'm Denise.
And I'm Jin,
and we are your hosts for this episode. We have Dr. Jun Hong here with us today. He's an expert in dental photography and he so happens to be an alumnus of IMU. He graduated in 2020 and he is now an associate at Subang Dental Specialist Clinic, working alongside colleagues truly passionate about dentistry. If you check his Instagram pages out at jhong.visuals and at jhong.dental, you will see just how well he's able to capture the dancing of light in perfect timing and make time, space, light and precious moments stand still before him.
Hi everyone, thanks for inviting me today. It's a pleasure to be on the podcast in IMU for my alma mater. So thank you again for having me today, Denise and Chini.
Thank you, Dr. Jun Hong, for agreeing to come. We'll start off with why dental photography? How did you develop an interest in dental photography?
So I started photography in general as a hobby when I was 15 years old. So up until year 4, I didn't know that I can incorporate photography with dental. Thanks to Dr. Jun Hong, which was an inspiration to me, who actually introduced me to this scene. He has also taught me how to take photos intraorally and extraorally. So since then, Dr. Jun Hong has always been the guidance for me. So from there, me and Dr. Lee keeps on improving our techniques and learning how to do all this dental photography stuff.
That's very interesting. So if I'm not mistaken, like Dr. Jun Hong is actually your batchmate, right?
Yes, correct. Dr. Jun Hong was my batchmate. Right now, he's still a very dear friend to me, and we are doing workshops together in dental photography as well. But today he's a bit busy, that's why he couldn't make it today. But Dr. Jun Hong is also a very great dental photographer.
I see. So Dr. Jun Hong, how did he start off with dental photography and how did he introduce it to you?
Alright, so from what I heard from Dr. Jun Hong, he learned that from Dr. Sonia Lee. So in year 4 and year 5, that time, IMU's camera already has a DSLR at that point of time. Then me and Dr. Lee, we have our own camera. So we were discussing about how we could improve on to dental photography. From there, Dr. Lee actually showed me the techniques of how to take a very good angle in intraorally and extraorally, some specific techniques and all that stuff. Yeah, that's how we started to talk more about it.
That's really eye-opening how teenage passion for photography has brought you into the field of dental photography once you have the right tools and people around you who can support your interests. So now I'll follow up with the question. What most people will think of dental photography is it has become a way for dentists to document and promote the work they have done. But dental photography is more than what meets the eyes. In your opinion, what is the importance of dental photography in dentistry?
Right, yes. First of all, I'm quite glad that more and more people are taking up dental photography when compared to back in the days where I just started mine. So the importance, it's really apparent, I would say. So first of all, it's documentation. Whenever I take a photograph of my work, let's say a simple filling, whenever I thought it was a good restoration, I would just go home and then check the photos I took, and then I realized that there's quite a lot of mistakes. So from there, I get to see what is my mistake, how can I improve. So the next time, I would just keep on improving my skills and my restoration. Taking dental photographs in a way you can also self-inspect on your work as well. And the second thing is that dental photography, you can also use it as a communication tool between you and your patients. Like, for example, when you tell your patients that you have a caries or your gum health is really, really bad, or you have a lot of calculus. So when you talk all this to the patient, your patient couldn't really understand what you're talking about most of the time. So even if you bring out the mirror, some of the times the patient cannot see, or they don't really know what you're pointing at. They don't know what to look at. So when I take photographs, I show the patient, then most of my patients, they will be like, oh, I see. And they can actually understand what you're talking about, how severe their condition is, and that would actually also improve their compliance in dental treatments and also taking good care of their good oral health. And then third, it's there to protect yourself if you have dental photograph. I would say in my experience, there was this case where the patient said that I did something to make his teeth crooked. Then I was like, no, it wasn't. So we had a bit of a discussion over there, and I said, look, then I opened up his old photographs and I said that it was already there before you came to me. So with the photographs in hand, then he was like, only he dropped the issue. So imagine that without the photograph, it would take a very, very long time, and it would be very, very tiring explaining to the patient that it wasn't your fault, it was already there. So if possible, I would say that just take photographs if you have the time and the equipment. It's after your very, very well practiced, I would say to take a full intraoral photo of the 5 angles, the frontal, the buccal views, the mandibular and maxillary view. The most you take would be 5 minutes. So I think that every case, if possible, just try to take all these photos.
Well, I think, with your story about the incident with the patient, I think dental photography is really important, not only for documentation, not only for personal improvement, but also for protecting ourselves. So you definitely see photography as an art, and it's, not just simply whipping a camera or phone out and just snapping shots. So I want to ask you, like, what does it mean to take meaningful and valuable photos in dentistry, and what does it take to capture all these angles and all that?
Alright, so dental photography, for me personally, I would classify into 2 things. One is for documentation, and the other one is for more of your artsy work, right? So official or documentation, let's say for your intraoral photos, your extraoral photos, your pre-op and your post-op photos, actually they are quite standard. You don't really need to go and do some creative lighting or whatsoever. The most important part is it has to be well lit. It has to be bright enough to see all the details. And then angle wise, it's very difficult to just talk like this. It would be better if I can show it to you personally in real life, but you can use a cheek retractor to shoot the frontal, and then using a mirror you can take the buccal shots and also the maxillary and mandibular view. And then there is this other part where we are talking about more of a creative shot, which like you're going to take photos of your crowns, your bridge, your dentures or whatever. Those are more of promoting yourself part, where lighting can be really fun and creative if you know how to play with it. You can get different lighting effects just by placing the light at different source, like from 12 o'clock direction or 3 o'clock direction or 45 degrees and all that stuff. Yeah, so I think that initially, if people are finding dental photography is a bit overwhelming, I think it is actually not, because the official documentation, the settings are actually quite standard all across. So it would be a great place to start with.
Oh, I see. So, like, whatever you have said, I feel like it takes a lot of practice and it takes a lot of trial and error to know what works for different cases, for different lighting. So how should we hone our skills in dental photography? Because it's definitely not something you can learn overnight. It's something you improve by looking at what you have taken, and it takes time.
Right. So in the beginning, for people who doesn't have the DSLR or the mirrorless set up, I think starting off with your phone is a really good idea. So with the phone, you don't really have to worry about the lighting and stuff like that, as long as you have a good light source. So from there, you can start to work on your angles, how to position your mirror, how to position you and your patient and all that stuff. Then after that, maybe you can start considering getting a more professional setup like the DSLR and the mirrorless with dedicated flash and also the lens. So personally, I think the equipment itself is not as important as your skill. And then the other thing is the only way to get better with this is practice, practice, and practice. So the more you do, the easier it is for you to find out what is your most comfortable angle and the patient's position for you, because everyone's height is different. So the position of the patient would also change according. Some people find it's nicer to have the patient to sit upright. Some patients find it's easier for them to take photos when the patient is lying down. So only by going through practice, then only you'll find out what is most comfortable for you.
That's really eye-opening, Dr. Jun Hong. I couldn't imagine that just simple stuff like positioning the patient, good light source, and even a phone can have the same effects of your approach to dental photography. So previously you did mention about having like basic items like even a phone can help with it. But for those who wants to have a professional equipment for it, there are so many options in the market for photography equipment. So what is your advice to anyone who wants to start dental photography with a professional setup? And what does a basic setup for that look like? And could people start it without spending a fortune on the equipment?
Sorry, I shouldn't be using the word professional setup. I would just say it's phone and a DSLR/mirrorless setup. I think phone setup today is actually very, very good compared to last time. So now, if you're just going to use your photos on just social media, Instagram or Facebook or whatever, phone is actually good enough, I would say. But if you are thinking of doing podium dentistry, you are going to present on a very big screen, or you just have pursue higher quality images, then we can think of getting into the DSLR market or the mirrorless market. But that would be quite difficult for some people, as they think that you have to spend a lot on that and they are not sure if it will be suitable for them. So my advice is to say that if you have a friend that owns dental photography setup, maybe you can just borrow it from them, test it out and see if that suits you. Or for IMU students, I think there is 2 cameras in IMU, right, for the students to use?
Yeah, there is.
Yeah, if I'm not mistaken, one is a DSLR and another one is a mirrorless. So from there, you guys can compare which one suits you more. But comparison between a DSLR and mirrorless is another huge topic. So if we have the time, then maybe we can talk about it. If not, I think we'll save it for another day. But overall, I would say that it won't cost too much if we getting it secondhand. Because personally, all my cameras right now, I've only bought them secondhand. I haven't really bought a new camera for a very long time. So you can get a DSLR body for around 1,000 to 1,005, and then another good macro lens thing from around 1,005 to 3,000, between there. And then a good flash would be around 500 to 800. So altogether, I think you can get it for around 3 to 4,000 setup, which is very, very good really, because in the end, you don't have to get a really expensive camera body. The most important part is your lens have to be a macro lens, and just get a flash, which is the most important part of dental photography as well.
I see. So if there's like a big range of like prices between different cameras and different equipments, could you tell the difference between, say, like a lower range one and a higher range one? Is there like a significant difference in terms of quality of images?
Okay, I would say that just for dental photography itself, right? When we use let's say a more of an entry level versus a flagship model, for dental photography wise, I don't think that there would be a significant difference. Even if I use a very old camera 10 years ago and a newest flagship model today, unless you go and pixel peep, which means that I zoom in a lot, then maybe I can find a difference. But I think for the mass majority, you can't really tell. Because personally, I've tried using 2 different cameras with the same lens and with the same flash setup, just different camera bodies, the more of an entry-level one and a flagship model, I would say the difference is very, very minute. Especially if you are going to just post it on Instagram or Facebook where your photos are so small, I don't think anyone would be able to tell which camera you're using. So I've gotten a lot of questions from people that ask me, should I get a full frame or should I just get a crop sensor? I think in image quality wise, both of them don't have a very big difference. I would say quality wise is the same. And both can be very good if you use the right lighting condition. But full frame and mirrorless wise, the only thing you've got to be aware of is that given the same lens, using a full frame camera versus using a crop sensor, when you're using a crop sensor, you probably have to stand further away. For some people who are slightly shorter, when they take photo, they might find it a bit difficult to shoot because they have to tiptoe, they have to stand further back. So that maybe you have to keep in mind on that. But image quality wise, I think it's not much of a difference.
So I'm pretty sure, like, you said photography started off as a hobby for you, but there's a lot of technicalities in it, as you mentioned. How do we expose ourselves to the technicalities, like the technical part of photography, besides the creative part?
Oh, this would be quite difficult to explain, but there is no exactly a standard setting, but there's a range for it. So usually there's 4 components in dental photography. I would always like to share in our lecture and our workshop is that ISO, aperture, shutter speed, and also your flash power settings. If you want the cleanest image, set your ISO to the lowest possible, which is ISO 100 for most of the cameras out there. Then aperture wise, depending if you're shooting intraorally or extraorally, you should set it between f22 to f48, depending on your lens. And then shutter speed, always just set it to 1/200 for all occasions. Just set that and then don't change the setting for shutter speed. And then flash power is where you can change depending on how bright and how dark your photo is. If your photo is too bright, and then you just set the lower flash power. If your photos turn out to be quite dark, then you can just tune it up, the flash power. That is a very, very rough idea on how to make the settings, camera settings.
I think that would be quite helpful for some people who really don't know anything about dental photography, like me, who wants to start. And I guess you have to start somewhere. So finally, just to wrap things up, do you have anything else you want to say to our listeners?
Alright. First of all, I would like to also thank Prof. Xiao, who given me and Dr. Lee the chance to actually give a lecture and our workshop. She believed in us at that time. She gave us the chance to go on stage. So that's how we kickstarted our dental photography journey also. And second thing is that I think that you should really just pick up the camera and then just start shooting. Don't worry about what camera you're using first, because the best camera is always the camera you have with you. So no matter phone, DSLR or whatever, just start documenting and then turn it into a habit. Take photos for every patient if possible, and then sooner or later you'll find yourself taking photos very easily, very fast. So it won't take more than 5 minutes. That's all. Start practicing today with your friends, and then just also can go back home, see the quality of a photo, also see the quality of your work, and then you'll have a lot of improvement.
Thank you so much for all the amazing insights on dental photography. And I'm pretty sure like this podcast will really inspire younger dental students to take up dental photography in their undergraduate years. Thank you so much, Dr. Jun Hong.
No problem. Thank you so much again for inviting me.
Thank you so much, Doctor. So for closing, thank you for tuning in on another episode of the Smile Project. Hope you have gotten a better insight on what dental photography is all about, and you have received all the tips and tricks that Dr. Jun Hong had shared with us. After this episode, I'm sure you will know how you are able to embark on your journey of dental photography. Check out Dr. Jun Hong's Instagram at jhong.dental and Dr. Lee Chun Ho at QENQUU for more awesome photos, and stay tuned for any future dental photography workshops that they conduct. Don't forget to follow us on Spotify, Instagram, and Facebook to be notified of any new episodes. See you on the next episode. Bye!
Bye-bye.
Thanks for listening to today's episode of the Smile Project. We hope you enjoyed.
If you would like to help support the podcast, please share it with your family and friends and leave a rating or review. Thank you once again, and I'll see you next time.
Bye!